Hey everybody, Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek here. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. I wanted to do this solo episode of the podcast to talk about something that I'm not sure I've ever addressed, at least solo-y. I don't know, is solo-y a word? At least in a solo fashion. And that is one of the bigger issues that I think us technical people have in speaking about what we do to non-technical audiences, what we typically focus on and what we should be focusing on. And to do that, I'd like to tell us a story. With my second job, I was brought in as a product development engineer, and a few months into the job, I was told I was going to be a project lead. And as part of that role, I'd have to give presentations on a monthly basis in front of senior management. And it was on project status. I was speaking to the CEO, CTO, CMO, all these C-level people about how my project was going and what I needed from them, essentially giving them status updates on a monthly basis. And when I tell you those presentations didn't land well, I mean, that'd be an understatement. And looking back on it, the reason they didn't land well is because I was focused more on what I thought was important as opposed to what they thought was important. I mean, I mentioned these are C-level people, so they're thinking at a high level. And here I am, a product development engineer or a project lead, thinking on a more technical level because that's my background. I was an engineer. But I think what I really, well, not what I know, what I think, what I know I needed to do was to tie what I did to the business objectives. What, because ultimately it's a business. We need to sell whatever I'm producing to make money for the company to pay salaries, including my own. And I can say, with all honesty, that's not what I was thinking about at all when I first started giving presentations. And eventually, my project got canceled. It was canceled maybe a few months into me giving these presentations. And I look back on it that time, this is like in 15 plus years ago, and I just think to myself, if I was just better at communicating the usefulness of that product or that I was working on, maybe they'd have this product out right now selling millions of dollars. But because I wasn't putting things in a way that these business level people, these senior level business minded people can understand, well, my project got canceled. And it's an outcome that I hope that other technical people like myself can avoid. Don't make the same mistake that I did. And that essentially was why Teach the Geek was formed. I mean, a lot of the times I'll speak about the usefulness of speaking in front of non-technical audiences and the benefits that they can get a technical person in terms of moving up within an organization or just being open or being seen as someone that can take on other opportunities within the company or even outside the company. But ultimately, if you're working for a business, you need to be able to talk about how what you're doing benefits the business. You know, as I said, as technical people, we focus more on what we think is interesting, the technical features. And we just think that, well, if we think it's interesting, others will think it's interesting as well. And they might, but they're not making decisions based on technical features. They're making decisions based on potential business outcomes. How much of this can we sell? Who are we going to sell it to? And essentially, money. They're thinking about money. And I wasn't thinking about money at all. And I should have been. And I implore other technical people to think about it as well. And that's what I focus on with Teach the Geek. Certainly, becoming a better communicator can help in moving up within an organization. But really, the priority needs to be in communicating how what we know as technical people benefits the business. What are the business outcomes that can come from what we do? And that's what we focus on, as I said, with Teach the Geek. It's all about framing our technical expertise in a way that business-minded people can understand so they can make more informed decisions, so they can make better decisions based on their understanding of what we do. Because you don't want to be where I was speaking in front of these business people, these senior level people, and them likely not understanding what I'm talking about, and now my project gets canceled. I mean, if a project's going to get canceled, let it get canceled because they didn't think that the business case was a strong enough one. Not they didn't understand what you were talking about in the first place, so the answer ultimately became no. And that's a tough place to be in. So really, I guess the goal of me even making this podcast episode is to really make it explicit as to what Teach the Geek is about. It's not necessarily just about soft skills training or about getting better as a speaker, as a communicator. It's about why you want to get better as a communicator. It's so that the people who can make business decisions within organizations can better understand what we're talking about so they can make better decisions for the company as a whole. And when that happens, well, we get to keep our jobs. It's interesting. When I worked as an engineer, every other week, money would end up in my bank account, but I never thought about where the money came from. As long as it was there, that's all I cared about. But now that I do teach the geek and I'm not an engineering employee anymore, I think about money all the time. And that's essentially, as I said, where I think a lot of us technical people need to focus on and think about as well. It's not just all about the technical features and specific engineering specifications and just design inputs and outputs, the various the design control process that many of us go through. I know I did when I worked in medical devices in developing a product. It's also about, as I said, tying that back to the business. Why are we doing this? To make money. And how can we frame what we're doing in a way that business-minded people can understand so they can make better decisions? I mean, I know I've said this a number of times, but I want to make it explicitly clear, as clear as I possibly can. Too many of us technical people don't do that, and more of us need to. And if we do, we become unstoppable. So hopefully this has made sense to the technical people who are watching, to the technical leaders who are watching. Hopefully it makes sense to them in terms of communicating that the importance of that to their direct reports, to the senior level people who are watching, including the ones I used to work for. I eventually got the hint, maybe a few years too late for my project, but I definitely got the hint. And for those of you all that I've never worked for, senior level people, let it be known that I understand and I'm doing my best to help other technical people understand this as well. And so essentially, that's what Teach the Geek is all about. Again, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe.